Hi, my name is Bill Price. On May 18th, 1980, in the state of Washington, Mount St. Helens erupted. I was there, and this is my story.
So, tell me a little about the eruption and your involvement.
Well, I had gone up to Washington from Portland, Oregon with a friend of mine, and on the 17th, the next morning, I woke up at a friend of mine's house, and about 8:30 in the morning, I looked out the back of my van window, and the mountain was blowing up. That's all I can say. That's exactly what happened.
So, why were you out there?
We had me and my friend Phil went up to Amboy, Washington, to see a buddy of mine's band play up there. There was a big party going on because there was a lot of people from around the world studying the volcano. They knew the thing was going to blow up. They knew it would become active. So there's a lot of scientists and paper people around, and it was a big party going on up at a little place called Nixon Amboy. And like I said, my friend's band was playing there, so that's why I was up in the area. We'd driven up from Portland.
Right. Who was involved in this event with you?
Like I said, my friend Phil Pizzanelli, and another friend of ours who lived up close to the mountain in the town of Cougar. His name was Joe McWilliams. That's whose house we stayed at.
Right. Were you worried at all?
That's when it happened. No, because we were too scared. But the night before, when we were coming up the Lewis River, and you could see the mountain sitting there, I turned to Phil. I said, "Phil, look at that mountain." I said, "If that sucker decides to blow, like they're saying, we'd probably be dead. This would probably be the last thing we ever seen." And that was kind of serendipitous because, like 14 hours later, it did blow.
Before the eruption, do you remember anything happening?
Well, that's a hard question to answer because it's kind of ambiguous. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on around the mountain. Like I said, there's people from all over the world, newspaper people, because the thing had come to life again after being dormant for 121 years. It started to come to life. It started to burp, as they were calling it. There was this deformation being formed on the north slope of the mountain. The snow was black, and the snow cap had turned black from all the ash and all the venting of the stuff out of there. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on around the mountain before the eruption.
When did you realize when the volcano erupted?
It erupted at 8:32. At 8:32 and 10 seconds, I knew what was going on. Like I said, I was in the back of my van. Phil and Joe went to sleep in the house, and I had a custom van, and I had a bed in the van. And the way I parked, the back doors were aimed right towards the mountain, and it was a beautiful day, and I left the doors open. And I was kind of between this half asleep, half awake state. I heard this rumble, more felt it than heard it, and the van started to move like from an earthquake. And I looked out the window, I looked out the door of the van, and it just had started to blow. I could just start seeing the top of it coming up.
All right. Where was your location in relation to this event?
I was in, there's a little town about 5 miles from where we were at the night before. It's called Cougar, Washington, and it's on the Lewis River. And I was between Cougar and what they call the Swift Reservoir, and that's a distance maybe 15 miles between Cougar and the Swift Reservoir. And I was about halfway between those two places on the Lewis River at my buddy's house.
Right. How did people you traveled with react to this?
At first, kind of panicky. Like I said, I was sleeping in the van alone, and Joe and Phil were in the house, and I can't use the language that was yelled at the time. But Phil said, start that blankety blank blank van up and let's get the blankety blank out of here. Because that thing's blowing up. Joe got on his dirt bike and headed out across country. He knew the trails back there. He knew how to get shortcut back to Amboy. But us in the van, we had to stay on the road. But we made it. It was nothing happened to us on the way back. It just, you could still feel the ground shake whenever we stopped. You could see the thing. But it was a little hectic.
During your experience, how quickly did it happen?
1 minute it was a beautiful, peaceful morning. Next second, all hell tore loose.
How dark was the sky in your location, and what time of day was it?
Like I said, it was a beautiful morning. It was clear. Sun was coming up. It was going to be a beautiful spring day. Then all of a sudden, this thing blew up, and the sky turned. This rolling black and gray cloud came out of this thing, shot up 30 miles in the air, blocked out the sun, and it just kept going and going and going and going. And the lightning inside this cloud you should have seen the lightning. It was amazing, and you couldn't hear no thunder. That was the weirdest thing. It was dead quiet. There was this rumble, but you didn't hear it. You felt it. And there was all this lightning and this cloud coming up out of the volcano. It was something I'll never forget.
What were your family and friends' thoughts when they found out about the eruption and knew you were present?
Well, my mom thought I was crazier than damn it for being so close to the to the volcano in the first place. A lot of my friends and cousins and relatives thought it was pretty cool that I was so close to such a earth-shattering major event that probably never happened again in our lifetimes.
Mm-hmm. What kind of damage do you remember seeing?
I didn't see much damage myself that day. Mostly the stuff was the ash falling, but because the mountain, I was on the south slope, and the mountain blew out towards the north, and that's where all the damage was, north and east. So I didn't really get to see a whole lot of damage that day. Later on, when I went back a few months later, I saw some damage, and then of course we saw the damage that they showed on the news. Because we were only 60 miles away, and it was on the news for like 5 days straight with nothing but volcano reports and all these pictures and everything. A couple of my friends took some of the most famous pictures of the volcano blowing up, but the damage was pretty severe. But I did not witness it as it happened. Later on, I did.
Were you ever in danger?
Yes and no is the best way to answer that. Yes, because it could have blown up on our side and to the south. But after it blew up and the pressure was released, and I found this out later, that there was no more danger of the eruption happening on our side or any more of the mountain, because all that built up pressure that caused the explosion had gone out to the north side of the mountain. So we weren't actually in any physical danger after that, except maybe from the ash, inhaling the ash and maybe getting something in our lungs and stuff.
Right. How long did it take for emergency and relief responses to react?
That I can't answer. I'm sure, I would say days, because of the pyroclastic flow and just the damage and destruction and the inability to get in there. They went in there in helicopters, the day after. But as far as, they didn't find my friend Reed's body for 4 or 5 days after he died. So
Right.
I really can't answer that, with accuracy.
Mm-hmm. After the eruption, how long was it before you could leave state and travel home?
Immediately. That was not a problem. The road that we took into Amboy and over to Joe's house was one of the few roads that were coming off the mountain, and everybody that was near the mountain and was trying to get out had to come to that road. They couldn't take the Toutle River Road because the bridge and the road was the road was gone. They had to come down to the south side of the mountain, and get out. So there was a lot of traffic, and it took maybe 2.5 hours to get down a stretch of road that usually took 45 minutes. So, but that was the only thing. That was the only problem. Once we got on the freeway, we were out of there.
Have you visited Mount St. Helens since your experience?
Yes. Went there about 3 months afterwards with a friend of mine who was a reporter, was doing an article for the Portland newspaper on the wildlife coming back already, and some of the grass is starting to pop through the ash already. Just 3 or 4 months afterwards, and he was doing an article on that, so I got to go in with him. And then in 2000, I went there and visited. I went to what they call Coldwater Camp, is where my friend Reed was when he died. And they built a museum there, and it's right at the caldera, right in the middle of the volcano. Just you can see where it blew out. I mean, it's just right there, right in your face. So those were the 2 times I went back, and it was still devastated. It was amazing. The devastation 20 years later, you can still see it.
Does this event still affect you today?
Very much so. Very much so. Us as being human beings, we sometimes think that we're it. We're the big King Daddy rabbits on this planet, and we're not. Not by a stretch. You see something like that, and you realize how insignificant you really are. You got a mountain. I mean, it's a mountain. It's made out of rock. It's made out of earth. You've climbed it. You've been to the top of it. I've skied on it. It was there. Every day you see it. And then one morning you wake up and a third of it is gone, disappeared, spread all over the world. Boy, you feel about that big. Thanks for letting me tell you my story.
Thank you.
I want to dedicate this interview to my buddy Reed and old Harry, the man in the mountain. Thanks, kid.
Thank you.